So good afternoon, everybody. This is Abaya, Jivamaya Yoga Wisdom Talks. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And we have a very special and dear friend of mine today, Arun Deva, who will be speaking to us about the importance of Ayurveda and the integration of Ayurveda with yoga therapy. So for those of you that may not know Arun, Arun is an Ayurvedic practitioner living in LA. He is a IAYT a yoga therapist, a Nama Iyer yoga therapist. I call him a master teacher of Vinyasa Krama. What else? What have I missed? I don't know if I've missed anything. That's about enough, I think, right? Anyway, Arun is absolutely delightful. His knowledge of Ayurveda is profound, and he's going to be sharing with us much of that wisdom. So I'd like to right away welcome you, Arun. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. And I would like to start right off by asking you to please explain or clarify the word yoga, the word Ayurveda, the word yoga therapy, and the word Ayur yoga therapy, so that we're all very clear about what those differences are.
So I think we're talking about Ayurvedic yoga therapy. And so if that's what we're talking about, there's, as you mentioned, three parts to it. There's three words: Ayurveda, there's yoga, and there's therapy. Why don't we start with the therapy word first? So as I understand it, therapy requires two things. It requires a diagnosis and it requires treatment. So for diagnosis, you need a medical system of some type. So there's that part. And then, of course, for treatment, what we're implying is that yoga is the path that we're going to use for treating. So now then it comes to the question of what is the medical system that you rely on for the diagnosis? And that, of course, is going to affect the type of treatment that you give. So when we talk about yoga therapy, we're really basically talking about linking yoga with modern medicine. And so that's where the difference comes in. When we talk about Ayurvedic yoga therapy, we talk about linking yoga with a different medical system called Ayurveda, which is a traditional medical system from India. Many call it a sister science to yoga because they're both arising out of the Vedic tradition. And so they share the same languages, they share the same philosophy, they actually share much more than that. And so when yoga aligns with Ayurveda for therapy, then it's actually aligning with principles, language, and philosophy that is encoded within yoga itself. Whereas when yoga aligns with modern medicine, and I'm not saying this is good or bad, I'm just so then it has to calibrate because the language is not the same. Right. The treatment protocols are not the same. We're trying to integrate two completely different approaches. For one thing, Western medicine, when it comes to yoga, is very much anatomy, very much anatomical, very much, if we want to take it from the yogic point of view, very much material. What is the material of the human body? And let's work with that. In fact, when we talk about yoga therapy, we're really, if we want to go a little bit deeper, then we start using models such as the Panchamaya Kosha, which is what yoga therapy, as I understand it, from the International Association of Yoga Therapists, uses as a therapeutic model, in addition to the Western medical model. And that language is not found in Western medicine at all. Especially not in modern medicine. However, it is found in Ayurveda because it's a shared language. So they share a language, and so there doesn't need to be any integration. They're already integrated. In a sense, you could say that they rely on each other traditionally and always have. In fact, when we talk about disease in the yogic model in the traditional text, we do talk about dosha, that which is the cause of a disease, and dhatu, that is which is affected by the disease. So the languaging is the same, and there's this already existing bond between the two that it's been staring us in the face, but we haven't actually looked at because it's been there right all along. So we may have, not paid proper attention to it. But when we look at it, the model for therapy is very clear when you use Ayurvedic diagnosis and yoga for treatment.
Beautiful. Arun has spoken at many conferences. The Sitar Conference, which is the Symposium for Yoga Training and Research. He's spoken at NAMA, which is the National Ayurvedic Medical Association. And my next question has to do with a brilliant presentation that Arun gave, I think somewhere around 4 years ago at the Sitar Conference, regarding uniting yoga and Ayurveda for therapeutic purposes. And in this presentation, he quoted Acharya Charaka by saying, "Physicians are of two kinds, the superior who promotes prana and thus destroys disease, and the inferior who pursues disease and thus destroys prana." Then in the very next sentence, Arun went on to say, what is yoga therapy if not the understanding of how to best manage and promote prana? So based on this, I'm going to ask if it's possible for you to elaborate on the different protocols that you would use to promote prana within the Ayurvedic teachings, and then within the yogic teachings, the yoga therapy teachings.
That's a multi-part question, so we'll try and break it down. Why don't we start with perhaps helping your listeners to an understanding of prana. So, prakarshena anati gachati iti prana. So, prana, the word prana is a samasa. It is a compound word. There's two parts to it. Ana, that which enters. And of course, that which enters first, pra, the prefix, is in this sense that which enters first. So what enters first is breath. We're all primarily alive because of breath. If breath did not enter us, then we would not be alive. Which is not to say that prana is breath, but that prana comes in through the breath first. Okay, prana also comes in through food. Prana comes in through our senses. Prana is anything that relentlessly goes forward. Prakarshena anati gachati iti prana. This is prana. Prana is that which goes forward. So relentlessly goes forward. If prana stops, then life stops. So prana is a Shakti. It is the essential Shakti of life. See, there are three primary Shaktis that we all have. So two of them revolve around desire and aversion. Okay, one is the desire to get what I want, that is Ichha Shakti, and the other is to not get what I don't want, which is the flip side of the same thing, right? What I want and what I don't want. The effort I will make, the Shakti, the effort I will make, the energy I will put out is, if we think about it, our whole lives are built. These are our conscious and unconscious Shaktis. Everything is based on these. Everything. What I want and what I don't want. This is my whole life. This is my life story right there. Okay? But what is life itself? That too needs a Shakti. And that Shakti is automatic. I don't have to think about it. It's happening. It's happening all the time. And that is called Jivana Shakti. That is the act of breathing. So prana comes in primarily through the breath all the time. So the first thing we must do, if we want to control our lives, control our emotions, control our thoughts, control our health, we must become conscious of our breathing. That's the first thing. So what we say, because you asked, like, how can we apply this? I would say, if you are doing an asana practice, because that's a yoga tool, right? There are 8 primary yoga limbs. The third one is asana. In that particular one, how can we bring consciousness to the breath in that? By just breathing consciously while we do our asana practice. Immediately, this brings in a certain quality to our asana practice. That is the quality of mindfulness. When that quality of mindfulness comes into our asana practice, because we are focused on our breathing. In fact, if we wish to, we might initiate the movement with the breath, right? Whether it's an inhale, antara, or a exhale, bahya. These are the terms, Sanskrit terms. So whether we're inhaling or exhaling, it is part of the breath. Prana actually is the inhale. When you see, there's prana is 1, mukhya prana. But then it divides itself into 5 so it can do assorted tasks within our body. And then prana becomes that which comes in, apana becomes that which goes out.
Right.
So what comes in? Life. What goes out? The vessel within which the life came, which is carbon dioxide. We want to take it out. That is apana. That's a downward movement. And these two, they work in tandem. I mean, in random. Sort of in tandem. No, they work in random. What keeps them in tandem is a third prana. That prana, udana vayu, they keeps them together, udana prana. So like this, there are different aspects. Now, what can Ayurveda bring into this equation? Oh, prana comes in not just through breathing. Prana also comes in through your food, through how you exercise, through how you sleep, through how you think, through how all these things you do. It affects the quality of your life force. What are you eating? Does it have prana? How alive is that food? Because if I eat, I can eat to build the carbons in my body. So I can take carbohydrates. I can eat to build the proteins in my body, my energy field. I can build it so that my body, stays firm. I can bring fats in. All of these different things I can eat for. But the most important thing all of these will bring in is the life force. So if the fats I eat, the carbohydrates I eat, the proteins I eat, the sugars I eat are not full of life themselves, then I'm shortchanging myself. So Ayurveda brings in these factors. Yoga bring in that breathing technique, paying attention to your breath while you are doing your asana practice. All of these things precede something that is specific to prana, and it's called pranayama. Right? Then we go off into a whole different tangent.
Right. So the end result with prana, I mean, aside from the fact that we want to stay alive, prana becomes important because, I mean, why are we doing this? Why do we go through these 8 limbs, and why do we want to keep our prana as healthy as we can and moving toward, and this gets us into a little bit more of a subject of maybe the gunas, moving towards sattva, moving towards being able to control the senses better. Is that all part of that conversation of prana?
It has to be. And
Right.
I'm so glad you brought up the gunas. For many of your listeners who may not know what the gunas are, the word guna itself just means quality. But here what we're referring to is 3 primary qualities that we all have. None of us is missing these 3. One is clarity. We all have moments of clarity. No
You're
matter how
becoming
much.
a viewer.
Yes, this ability to have equanimity, which comes with clarity, to have peace of mind, which comes with clarity.
Right.
But the truth is that we don't have clarity as much as we should. That's because of the other two gunas. One is activity. Activity. And activity can end up chaotic, restless. It can end up disturbing clarity instead of leading to it. You see, action can lead to clarity, or it can lead us away from clarity. So this particular quality is not guaranteed to be positive. It can go both positive and negative because it is directional. It moves. But what does it move towards? It can move towards clarity, or the third quality, which is inertia, or dullness, or rigidity. We get stuck in something. So for instance, depression could be a good example of being stuck, and anxiety could be a very good example of being restless, or action that is directionless. Okay, so you can see how these can actually turn into clinical factors, and if we understand them, then it is possible that the tools for dealing with both depression, anxiety, and things like that already exist, and they've existed for thousands of years, because for thousands of years we've been trying to deal with it, and we've dealt with it really well. These days we seem to have this idea that unless it's something we've learned in the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, it doesn't really have any value. I would ask us to pause and take that with a grain of salt. Humans have survived very well for thousands of years, and some might say survived better than we're surviving these days. We seem to have a lot of chaos as well as rigidity in our world makeup right now. So these two qualities need to be controlled. When they're controlled, we have clarity. When we have clarity, then we are clear on where we're supposed to go, how we're supposed to go, where we're supposed to go, what should be the usage of our energy as we move forward. And coming back to prana, how do I preserve my prana so that when I move forward, I move with prana, I move with my life force. I don't move in opposition to my life force.
And when we work with the gunas in that manner, how does that affect any doshic imbalance that we might be having or experiencing?
Oh, this is such a beautiful question. Yes. So let's talk about the doshas then, right? So the doshas literally means those forces within us, psycho-spiritual, biopsycho-spiritual, but primarily biological, okay? Biophysiological, if you wish. There are three such forces within us. One is the force of air, which is a symbol for many things, including respiration, but primarily for our nervous system. Okay, the qualities of air can be understood. Air has movement. Air is cold. Air is rough. Air is hard. Air is very hard. Air is subtle. You can't even see it. Air is clear. Okay, so these are the qualities of air. So when these qualities, so we have something called vata dosha, which is air and space. When we have these qualities disturbed, then they cause primarily debilitating states. And they will, of course, debilitate our nervous system, but they will also debilitate our physiology by drying us out, by making us rough, whether it's on the skin or whether it's internally. and affecting all of that. And then with the erratic movement, this can affect our digestion. So when we have issues like this, or let's talk about the second one, which is fire, which is basically our metabolic activity, if we think about it, what we call the digestive process. What we call in Ayurveda the digestive fire, because it's related to the fire element, that heat element. It also moves, but it cannot move without air. One thing about fire, it cannot move without air. So you see, they move together, and then fire has its own qualities, including hot, penetrating. It remains clear like air, but it has all these other qualities. So when these become excessive or deficient, then they become dosha. Dosha literally means that a fault, a blemish, a defect. So like that, that'll happen. And then kapha, which is the element of water and earth. Okay, water and earth together creates a beautiful, we are water and earth together. So it's a living format for the prana to exist within, so we can have a life, a physical life. So we can have a spiritual life, we can have a mental life, but when we have a body, we have to acknowledge we also have a physical life. Okay, we shouldn't get so stuck in our physical life that we forget our mental life or our spiritual life. But we must take care of our physical life, because otherwise it becomes a distraction from our mental and our spiritual life or our emotional life. So all of these things. So that one, that's heavy, that's cohesive, it's dense, it's unctuous, it's liquid. So it has all of these firming qualities. It's stability, right? But out of balance, it's no longer stability, it's stuck. Okay. So yes, so when either of these mental aspects, the restlessness leading to chaos, or the inertia leading to rigidity increase, they disturb these three forces within us. And when they are disturbed, then our mind and our body do not work in harmony. They disassociate. For instance, the mind may look at a certain food and go, oh, I want to eat this, but it's not good for the body. Mind doesn't care at that point, because the mind is not functioning from a state of clarity. It might even be functioning from a low-grade addiction, if you wish.
Right.
Perhaps not a clinical definition of addiction, but let's call it a low-grade deficiency in our thinking capacity, where our willpower isn't for what suits us, but for what our senses are desiring. Then our senses are in control and we are not. So these three gunas have a very important effect upon our doshas. When we have clarity, when we have sattva guna, then we have a much better chance of keeping our physical forces healthy. But when either one or the other or both of the other two dominate, then we have a better chance of heading into a disease state. Excuse me.
So with the clients that you are working with at this time during this, it's still very challenging. We're still in a moment of total transition. We know we can't go back. We don't quite know where we're going forward, but we know we have to. So there is anxiety out there, I'm sure. And there's also probably a tremendous amount of anger. How did we get here? And all of those emotions that are arising for all of us. When you're working with your clients, can you share with us maybe the one or two what we call demon emotions that seem to be coming up, and what I understand that each person is very, very individual in your protocol for them, but in a sort of overall what you're seeing and what you feel maybe our listener could take away with them today, to help with anxiety, to help with a grief, to help with an anger, whatever those emotions are that are appearing for them.
So one of the most important concepts in yoga is something called Pratipaksha Bhavana. It literally means that when you have a negative emotion, cultivate its opposite. And then your energy will flow into the opposite, and then this one will wither away and die. So, unfortunately, in practice, this is very difficult. It takes time. So, you see, we may feel rightly so that we should be angry. We should be afraid. We can feel a certain amount of grief for what our world is going through, what our country is going through, what our times are telling us. But if we get stuck in those emotions, we're not going to move forward. To move forward, we cannot move from those emotions because we'll just come right back to the same place. Anytime you attack anger with anger, you're stuck with anger. So, and anger is the most difficult of all because it is a fire. Fires are very difficult to put out. Very difficult to put out. So, yes, so the concept is very easy. The concept is very good. Just replace the negative with the positive. But that's not always easy. So, we don't have much time, I think, but it is very clear to me that we don't have to go looking very far for remedies. Eat healthier. Don't overeat. Eat mindfully. Spend time with people who have already started to build positivity within their lives. Spend time with them. We are influenced easily. If we spend time with positive people, it is possible that we will be influenced. We might try to influence them and get them to go negative, but if they are strongly entrenched in their positivity, then that will not happen. And one of us is going to affect the other, or we'll walk away. So that's there. Bathe. Oh, the power of bathing is unbelievable. Wake up early in the morning. Oh my goodness, your mind is never more clear than at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. Yes, in the beginning you may not be used to that, but with time you will realize the power of the diurnal cycle. Exercise, do yoga. And what we call yoga today literally is the trunk of the elephant, but we made it into the whole elephant. We're talking about asana. We say yoga, we're referring to asana. Go ahead, do asana, but do it mindfully. Do it with the breath. Turn it to a mindfulness practice. Eat mindfully. Do everything. To me, the highest teaching, which embraces, which permeates all of these others, is mindfulness. So in that sense, the highest yoga is mindfulness. And Atha yoga anushasnam yogas chitta vritti nirodha tada drashtu sarupe avasthanam. Okay, so simply it means, what is the true meaning of yoga? The true meaning of yoga is to get rid of the distractions. What happens when you get rid of the distractions? You see who you really are. The moment you see really who you are, you're at peace.
That's beautiful.
So just start from where you are, and as you work forward, using the tools of yoga and Ayurveda, and find a teacher. There's so many books on the basics of Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a self-help tool until you get to a point where you're diseased and you need an Ayurvedic physician. But before that, Ayurveda is a self-help tool. Pick up some books, learn these principles. They're very easy to embody, bring into your life and the beauty of it is the body and the mind love to be in balance.
Yeah.
Take your time as it happens. Have patience. Dhi dhairyatmadi. Dhi means put the effort in. Dhairya, have the patience. Atmadi, have the faith. It will happen.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Arun. That's lovely. Thank you so much for these wonderful 30 minutes. I do want to end by saying that Arun will be giving online this beautiful, beautiful workshop called Healing the Heart. There's one on June 27th, another one scheduled for July the 11th. And I placed on the chat how you could do it, how you could reach him. So his website is www.yogarasayana, which is RASAYANA.com. And if you want some information about these workshops, and if those dates are free for you, I suggest highly that you do this, because Arun's workshops are always so enlightening, and you'll walk away feeling a few feet taller and a few little bit wiser, et cetera, et cetera. But he can be reached at Ad Retreats, so AD for Arun Deva Retreats, all one word, at gmail.com. So Arun, thank you deeply for being with us and for sharing your wisdom. And I'm encouraged. So we really thank you so much. Have an awesome afternoon, everybody. We'll see you next week. Namaste. Thank you.